contrary to the popular belief, growth and growth of a country is not uniquely sort of concentrated in big cities. A lot of people believe that, but that's not true. It's true that some very concentrated regions, like, for example, the London and its big area, right, contribute in a disproportionate way to aggregate growth. That's true. But then, if you take into account all the contributions of small and medium cities, all these rural regions, and we compound all that, you get actually very big contribution. And in broad terms, actually 1/3 of growth comes from big cities, but 2/3 of growth come from all these many small and medium cities and rural regions.
Well, the actual report was designed to answer a very simple question, is why do some regions grow faster that were lagging in the past than other lagging regions, and why is that important for policymakers?
Too many places, too many regions in too many countries don't punch their weight. And they don't punch their weight not because they're not good enough, but because A, they don't think they can add enough, and B, national decision makers themselves don't think they can add enough.
Growth traditionally often had a one-size-fits-all type approach. Central government was set out to set regulations or policies, and everyone was supposed to move in the same direction. Whereas the more we understand about growth now, we realise it's not. It's a very heterogeneous phenomenon. It's something which is very differentiated, very qualified. It's different in different places. Moreover, the role that these regions play in growth across the whole of the OECD is actually increasing. This is a very different story to the type of rhetoric you see in the newspapers or in political discussions on television in most countries.
Well, yes, it is an issue because most of the planning, most of the budget for infrastructure, equipment, and planning procedures, most of this money goes to the bigger cities, to the biggest regions. So these smaller regions, these smaller cities are overlooked, and somehow they struggle to catch some of this money.
Well, from our perspective, we think there's a lot of potential in those underdeveloped regions. Some people think that, giving money to underdeveloped regions is charity. We don't think it's charity. We think it's fair, but especially we think it's efficient. It'll increase growth in the entire country and entirety of Europe, and that's why we want to invest in them.
I think it is important that each region finds its own recipe to overcome difficult situations and to find the key growth factors and the bottlenecks also.
Well, the factors that generate growth are varied, and they vary enormously from one region to the other. That's why we need place-based approaches. We need to actually create integrated policies that respond to the conditions.
I think the most important thing is to look at what you've got and the strength that you have. Usually people tend to concentrate on the weaknesses, but in the first place you want to look at your strength, and that's the main factor.
The national growth is the sum of the region's growth. So if you should have a good development of the whole nation, it's important for every region to have best possible performance out from their own possibilities, their own assets. But it's also a future aspect in this, because you never know what regions will be important for the development in the future.
If you have to treat something, you have to understand. Knowledge is probably most important. Knowledge of conditions, knowledge of partners, knowledge of territory, you have to respect.
Policy should focus on people, and that's the answer. Then we can talk about innovation, but there is no innovation without people. Then we can talk about infrastructure, but what do you need infrastructure for if you don't have people? Sometimes, if you don't focus on people, then you build infrastructure and they, leave immediately because they have nice highway to get out from this region without any perspective.